Okay. Sorry about the pause there. Okay, guys. Welcome to AP World History Unit 4 test review here. Fairly short test, about 28 questions with the short answer, it looks like, covering time periods of roughly 600 to 1450. Okay, let's jump in it. First up, we're going to talk just a little bit about the Hanseatic League. The picture you see on your screen right now is actually a map of the Hanseatic League. You'll see this in the Baltic and North Sea areas here of Europe. And really, all you really need to know about them is that they're this commercial and defensive confederation of guilds. Basically, they're working together to kind of help prosperity. Remember, Europe's trying to emerge in this time period, and they really have to work together to kind of compete with, outside empires from the east. Next up, 7 voyages. Remember that 7 voyages come out of the Ming Dynasty in China. Your main players there are Yongle, the emperor who commissions them. And of course, even more important is Zheng He, who was the Muslim eunuch admiral who commanded them. Remember the big treasure ships, of course. And basically it shows off China's might. It actually gets some countries to enter into tributary alliance with China. However, as time goes by, many of the Chinese felt like the adventure was too expensive. They had more domestic affairs in China, inside China affairs that they needed to attend to. And so, that, and they're dealing with nomads out in the desert and stuff. So they had frontier issues too. So with those two things, they're going to have to say no more voyages. So they get rid of the 7 voyages. Next topic is lay investiture. It's a term you really need to know, and it's basically competition between the rulers in Europe and the Pope. The Pope believes that church officials should be appointed by the Pope and other church officials. Rulers believe that the bishop in England, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and all these other positions, that the king should be appointing them. So you have a struggle of power between the king and the church, between the state and the church. So this leads to some tensions between the two. But remember, that's the big deal. It's all about who gets to appoint church officials there. We're going to be all over the place right here, so stay with me. I'm sorry. All right, moving over to the Inca for a minute. The Inca had sort of a socialism system where they used something called Ailu. And basically, Ailu was that where the old people were going to get taken care of, and poor families were kind of sheltered and stuff like that. So definitely socialism. Everybody kind of looked out for them. So a little unique in history. You don't see this happening just everywhere. So it's kind of unique to the Inca. Ibn Battuta, we've talked about this man several times. He's the most well-traveled man of the ancient world, even more well-traveled than Marco Polo, who's really his only peer as far as long-distance traveling goes. But of course, Ibn Battuta was a well-respected Islamic judge, which helped him in his travels. It helped him be welcome in many places. It's easier for him to travel because there's new marine technology, new technologies that are allowing him to get around faster and more efficiently. And he does make use of existing roads, of course. There's many great roads, Roman roads and otherwise, that he is going to use in his travels. And he's everywhere. He's in West Africa, Asia, he's all Europe, he's all over the place. Going back to Zheng He, actually, there are some similarities between Zheng He and, say, Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese explorer who directly sailed to India. Both of these guys, sailed to East Africa. So Vasco da Gama is going to get on the other. He's going to sail around Africa and make landfall, make port in East Africa. And Zheng He, all the way from China, is also going to make it all the way to East Africa. So both these sailors, both these explorers, had very long voyages under their belts. So certainly a similarity there. Portugal, if you remember, we're talking about the age of exploration and how Portugal really kind of starts the show. Don't forget Prince Henry the Navigator and his navigational school. But Portugal is establishing trading posts. They're going to do it in both Africa and Asia. They're going to kind of set the tone there. And, Spain and the other European countries are going to chase them for a little while before finally overtaking them. Now, in this time period that we're talking about, from 600 to 1450, We have advancements in marine technology, but without a doubt, until 1450, from 600 to 1450, it's the Chinese. They have the best naval. Think about the magnetic compass and some things like that. They have the best naval tech in the world. We'll go to Africa for a minute and talk a little bit about the Bantu migrations. We remember that the Bantu are a major language group in Africa, but they're best known for really three things. That they domesticated animals, and they're going to move from northern Africa into central and sub-Saharan Africa. And they do this because of population pressure, and they're going to bring with them iron technology. So really, those are three huge key things you associate with the Bantu: domestication of animals, population pressure, and iron tools. Now, there's a lot of long distance trade talked about in this time period. The Indian Ocean trade is one of the most important. And what really makes it great is it's this mix of, you got East African merchants, you've got South Asian merchants, you've got Middle Eastern merchants, and they all have this complicated and lucrative trade network going on. We talked about the Mongols and the importance of their conquest, an enormous land empire, the largest contiguous land empire in history, but a short-lived empire. They weren't around for a real long time. However, um, their their appearance basically allowed for better trade. Trade flourishes along the Silk Roads because of the Mongols. And remember how that links in with like the spread of the Black Plague and things like that. Pax Mongolica. And the Mongols and Aztecs both are actually share some similarities. And one of the biggest similarities is both are pretty brutal. They're both going to expand their empires by conquering neighbors. We know that the Aztecs, of course, are going to use their neighbors for ritual sacrifice and stuff. Whereas the Mongols would decimate entire cities to get them to surrender. Now, after Genghis Khan unites the Mongols and they go on their nice war path there, when he dies, uh, it's going to split up into four parts, and one of them is the Golden Horde, which is the Khanate that basically controls Russia, and it's a little bit different than the other ones. It's more decentralized. The Mongols, I guess, don't like it there as much, and so they're not really staying around like they do in China and in Persia and other places. So in the Golden Horde, really what they're going to do is they're going to have the Russian princes collect taxes for them and enforce laws. And so basically, if they come back and they see something they don't like, it'd be the Russian princes that are punished. So the Russian princes are going to try to do their job so they don't have to worry about the Mongols getting mad at them. There are some similarities between a couple of cities. Great Zimbabwe is one of the more notable cities in Africa, and Calicut is an important place there in South Asia, off the coast of India. And both of these cities are important really because of their location on long distance trade routes. And, they're going to grow in importance. Great Zimbabwe is 15, 20,000, but in sub-Saharan Africa, it was pretty advanced, and it was a pretty big city for the time period. Um, then we have kind of the Pope versus Patriarch. You need to be able to compare the differences in these two. The Pope is, of course, the head of the Roman Catholic Church, and the Patriarch is sort of the head of the Eastern Orthodox Church. The difference being that the Pope is the spiritual head, and the Patriarch has to share that title with, of course, the Byzantine emperors. Remember that the Byzantine emperors, they took a lot of power from the church because they too were the head of the church. So make sure you know that difference between the Pope and the Patriarch. Mali, we talked a little bit about Mali, West African important empire. And, some things you need to know about Mali: associate them with Mansa Musa. We know how important he was, how rich and powerful he was, how he was a Muslim. Mali's becomes important. It becomes enriched because it is a must-see place on the trans-Saharan trade route, and they flourish in gold and salt, and that's going to be their main trade items there in the trans-Saharan trade route. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about Mali. The Indian Ocean trade, and we talk about, and again, we're talking about several trade networks here kind of over and over, but the Indian Ocean trade is incredibly influential to East Africa. I mean, it's really going to help the development of cities. It's going to infuse technology there. You're going to see fruits and vegetables and new foods introduced because of the East Indian Ocean trade. Last one we'll talk about right here is similarities between the Inca and the Romans. And we kind of talked about this in class, if you remember. The great roads. Romans are known for roads. The old saying, all roads lead to Rome. Well, the Inca were an enormously long empire that stretched down the coastline of South America, through the mountains and all that. And they had fantastic roads. They had runners, they had postal systems and stuff just like the Romans did. The Romans were great engineers. The Inca were great engineers. So some great similarities there between the Inca and the Romans. Now, there are a few questions that I'm not covering in this study guide, and they have a stimulus-based question on your test. So I want you to be able to, cover that yourself without me going over that directly. Don't forget that your short answer question is over the Columbian Exchange. I'm expecting you to watch John Green's crash course on Columbian Exchange. We spend a lot of time on the Columbian Exchange. I am not going to give you help on that. It's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. It's very important. You need to be able to do that on your own. Okay. Good luck and hope you guys do good on your test. Thanks.